Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a Glock 42 and a Sig P365, both chambered in 380. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. When the Glock 42 first came out quite a few years ago, it was actually kind of groundbreaking. It was one of the smallest, lightest, striker-fired guns available with well-known reliability, a good trigger, good sights. There was a lot of things about the Glock 42 that made it a good gun, better than some of the other options that were available at the time. The question I would have is this still kind of in that realm, or has it lost its edge? Especially when you look at things like the P365, which came out first in 9mm, more recently in 380, so this is a more recent announcement from Sig compared to this Glock, with actually quite a bit more capacity. So today we're going to kind of compare the two and see, is the Glock still really where it's at, or has it been dethroned by the P365 and other guns that have come out recently in the high capacity 380 realm? So let's start with making sure that both these critters aren't going to bite. So that one's unloaded, and this one's unloaded. So the Glock 42 is actually fairly light. It comes in at 13.76 ounces with an empty mag installed. So you've actually got a fairly compact little footprint, just a little bit bigger than the palm of my hand. Almost fits on the palm of my hand. The P365 comes in a little heavier at 15.7 ounces, and with its flush magazine just kind of barely does it fit on the palm of my hand. These guns are very similar in size. Really the biggest difference is you've got a 2-ounce weight difference between the P365 and the Glock, but dimensionally they're so close that it really kind of doesn't matter. So the Glock is 5.94 inches front to back, the P365 is 5.8, but when you do beaver tail to beaver tail, they actually come out almost the same. From a height perspective, the Sig's just a hair shorter at 4.2. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. At the back it's shorter, but at the front, if you take the total footprint, the Sig is 4.2, the Glock is 4.13. When you look at the size of the width of the guns, you would kind of look at it and say, well, the Sig's a lot thicker. It's actually not. The slide on the Glock is noticeably thinner than the Sig. It's 0.8 versus the almost 1 inch for the Sig. But the overall footprint of the guns is 0.98 versus 1 inches, so 0.02 inches. Not going to make a difference in where you can carry this or where it's going to fit. More of it's just the shape and style makes the Sig look a lot bigger than the actual physical measurements really are on it. So the Glock really doesn't have a size advantage, does have a weight advantage, but really doesn't have a size advantage over the P365. Okay, so does the Glock have a sight advantage? Well, the Glock has the U-Dot Glock sights. I like them, they work well, but they're just regular day sights. The Sig has the Sig Light sights, so they're night sights, so they've got a tritium insert in them. You can kind of see it a little bit better with the camera. And they've got a white ring, so they stand out during the day. They're easy to see during the day, and of course they're night sights. And that little plate there says that the P365 is optics ready. In fact, there's even a version of this you can get from Sig with the optic pre-installed. But if you're doing apples to apples, you've got an optic ready on the P365, and no optic ready version as of now on the Glock 42. Doesn't mean they won't come out with one in the future, but they haven't and may not, because that thinner slide may make it difficult to find an optic that'll fit it. And I don't know, Glock really hasn't done much with this since it came out, and the market has been kind of innovating past it. I do like the Glock. It's a high quality gun, it's easy to shoot well, it's got a good trigger. It's been reliable. They did have a little bit of Gen 1 syndrome with these. When they very first came out, they were problematic. There were issues with the magazine and a few other components. Glock swiftly got on it, and they've worked ever since. The P365-380 version has been reliable since it came out, but when the very first P365s came out, they had some issues with peening and a few other Gen 1 type things. So both of these went through a little bit of growing pains very earlier in their evolution. But at this point, if you pick either one of these up new, chances are pretty good it's just going to work. Sig's worked through those original issues in the 9mm variant, did not carry them forward to the 380, and Glock's dealt with those initial issues. I haven't heard of problems with these new. So both of them are going to be reliable. So okay, the Glock's got that, classic Glock magazine, so it's going to have a capacity advantage. 6 rounds in a small gun like this is kind of what you might expect. Well, until you pick up the Sig, and you get 10 rounds in really about the same footprint. Or with the extended magazine that's available, it's a factory extended magazine, comes with 12 rounds. Now that, of course, does extend your grip. Now you're getting into that 3-finger grip, you get a bit longer grip. But you've got your I'm carrying it hidden well somewhere mag, and your add-on extra capacity mag. So the Sig can actually it does double the capacity of the Glock if you put the extended mag in it, and over a 50% increase of the flush mag. One thing, going back temporarily to the sights on both of these are replaceable. The 42 uses a kind of, or the rear sight and the front sight are specific size for the Glock, but they're readily available. And the Sig, they're dovetailed and both easily replaced. So if you don't like the sights on either one of these come from the factory, you can replace them. But here I'm kind of comparing the way you would walk into a store and pick one up, apples to apples. The Sig's definitely pulling ahead when it comes to the sight package and sight options. From an ergonomic standpoint, you've got slide serrations at the front and the rear on the P365, and they're big enough to actually work, so you can get a hold of them. And the Glock has just on the rear. Later Gen 5 and late generation Glock Gen 4s, of course, have added them at the front, but the 42, as far as I know, hasn't changed. And you can get a hold of it because it's not a very heavy slide, but there's no serrations there to assist you with that. Overall, I kind of like the Glock just because I have other Glocks, but I have to look at it and say, has Glock kept up, or has the world taken off past them? And if you didn't already have a selection of Glocks that you use for concealed carry and hunting and other things, would the trigger consistency be as important to you? Now, there's one important note that may be a difference. The Glock has the inertial safeties, so it has the split trigger for inertial safety and the internal drop safeties. And this Glock, just like any of the other Glocks, have been well known to be horribly abused and still not go off when they shouldn't. The Sig has the internal drop safety. There is a thumb safety available. It does not have the inertial toggle on the trigger. This is one of the things, created some various discussions when the P320 was in the news a little bit. I haven't heard of any of these problems with the P365. So that may be a concern for you, it may not. That's all going to be more personal preference. These are designed to be drop safe, and to the best of my knowledge from the behavior that I've observed, they are drop safe. So does the Glock have a price advantage? Well, actually it does. That's the one place where the Glock might win the battle. MSRP on these is $450, but I'm seeing them routinely under $400 for a new one. Of course, Glock doesn't publish an actual MSRP, so you end up with really what it is map pricing that you see advertised. And the Sig has an MSRP of $600, but I'm seeing them around $500. So the Glock has about a $100 street difference. It's about $750 for the version that has the pre-installed optic. So the Glock does have a price advantage if price is a factor. One thing I will do also is I'll demonstrate the triggers on these. So there's a little bit of take up on the Sig trigger. Kind of a slightly long break, but it's smooth and it's light. Very short, crisp, noticeable reset. I could feel a little push when the trigger reset. I could feel it, I could hear it, and you're right on the brake. Now if I go to the Glock, would help if I remove the magazine. Minimal take up, kind of right on the wall. Kind of a crisp, short wall. Typical of what you get from a Glock. Decent reset, you're right on the wall, and again, that short, crisp break. So both of these have good triggers. One thing that may come down to is your personal preference. The feel of the Sig is a little softer, but it's a little bit longer wall. The Glock has a slightly shorter wall, but a kind of a slightly crisper, heavier feel of the trigger. I'm not going to say either one's better than the other. That really is going to come down to personal preference. When I've had either one of these at the range, the trigger's done its job well. It hasn't been a problem. It hasn't caused it to be difficult to shoot well. And it has actually been part of being able to shoot well. So kind of circle around to the end. If I were going out to buy a Glock or a gun today in this category, ankle gun, deep conceal gun, dress clothes gun, would I choose the Glock? Me personally, I would, only because I like the consistency of all of the other Glocks I've got. Would I recommend somebody to choose the Glock over the P365? Probably not. If you didn't already have the Glocks and you weren't looking for that consistency, the P365 actually offers, for not much more money, in basically the same footprint, significantly more capacity and more modern features that are becoming very common. And I think Glock probably needs to step up their game. One other thing I kind of almost didn't mention is there's no rail on the Glock, so you rely on trigger guard lasers and lights and things like that, and there are quite a few of them out there. There is a rail on the Sig, but it is a Sig rail, which means only things that are designed for the Sig will fit on it. From a market availability, there's fewer things available to fit the Sig, but there are things out there because Sig's been around. There are fewer things to fit the Glock because you have to go around the trigger guard, but they are out there. So it would come down to you determining if the thing you want is available in one or the other. In my mind, that's probably not going to make your decision. It's really going to probably be the price and the ergonomics and the capacity. And if you're looking at ergonomics and capacity, the Sig's going to win. And if you're looking solely at price, the Glock would come in ahead. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Check us out on Utreon, Facebook, Rumble, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter, pretty much everywhere. And thank you.